Over the years, there has been plenty of Mario 64 ROM hacks released on the internet throughout, that aims to bring new and very interesting elements to the already great Mario 64. And one of the key elements of doing ROM hacks is the creative freedom that a ROM hacker can do. They could easily put any character they want into Mario 64, or they can have him travel in different worlds from different video game franchises. A while back, I was going on to YouTube when I stumbled upon a video from one of my friends, Reese, where he goes through a video where Mario goes into the world of Xenoblade Chronicles, which gave me an idea to look up various crossover ROM hacks that Mario 64 has received over the years. And as for the rules, these hacks can be from any type of crossover, whether it's inserting Mario into the games like Crash Bandicoot, or traveling through the various worlds of Popstar. But with everything out of the way, let's get started. So the first ROM hack we've got here is Mario vs. WarioWare. This is a combination of the WarioWare design and the gameplay style of Mario 64. So if you don't know, WarioWare is a party game where you play a bunch of various micro games at a rapid pace. The longer you're able to stay in a level, the faster and more challenging the micro games will get. And surprisingly, they were able to convert this form into Mario 64 very well. Whether it's trying to defeat Bowser as fast as you can, or getting all the red coins as fast as you can, there's a great amount of variety of microgames in here. They even add elements of the various minigames from the Mario 64 DS remake, which is always a nice touch. Even though I feel like that game's a bit inferior, it's always good to see representation of that remake. Honestly, I highly recommend trying this game out because it is really fun, and they even have nice little details like unique sprite animations, and it's very good quality. Although this squid microgame here can go into a fire. Like, what the hell am I supposed to do here? The next hack we've got here is Mario 64 in Evangelion, which is an iconic anime back in the 90s. Now, personally, I've never seen this before, so I can't say anything about the show itself, but from what I've heard from friends, it's pretty good. But we're not here to talk about the show, but the ROM hack that was based on it. And this hack does a lot. I mean, they even recreate the opening intro for the show. And it's surprisingly well made for what they have on the spot. And there's a lot of other cutscenes in the game as well. Which is so weird to see because I would never thought of seeing actual cutscenes using the Mario 64 engine. But anyway, as for the ROM hack itself, it's pretty much your standard Mario 64 ROM hack, but with one big thing. In certain sections of the hack, you'll be piloting a giant robot, which is based on one of the robots from the Mario Brothers cartoon. Which I honestly never thought anyone, not even fan-made stuff, would ever reference something like this ever again. It's like the equivalent of like someone made a Mario 64 cooking ROM hack, where they reference all the stuff from Egg Scoopa Koopa. But it's still really cool to see, though. But the main point of these robots is to defend these cities from these giant monsters. And even though I love the ambition and the production value for this one ROM hack, it does fall a bit flat in the gameplay side. I don't know why, but the robot controls in this game are a bit too slow and clunky. I know that's the point because you're driving a giant heavy robot and such, but it never really feels that satisfying. It's still really impressive they were able to fit all this in Mario 64, but I feel like it just needs a few tweaks here and there. But even then, I still recommend trying out this hack. Now this is another impressive feat. This is Celestio 64, which is a ROM hack where you insert Mario into the world of Celeste. Now personally, Celeste is probably one of my favorite indie games of all time. It's such a phenomenal game with amazing visuals and music, and one of the key things of the gameplay is that it's so tight with the platforming, so I was very curious on what they could do to convert this into Mario 64. And the answer is that they completely overhauled the controls for this ROM hack in particular, which frankly makes sense because I doubt you would ever make the level design for Celeste using Mario 64's controls. Although they did keep certain of the aspects of Mario's original movement, it just feels a lot more tighter than usual. It's really impressive they were able to do such a feat of converting different control schemes, and it is a bit weird feeling this in Mario 64. I mean, hell, it's weird to feel any kind of 2D platformer using the N64. But nevertheless, this is another fantastic ROM hack that was able to implement the gameplay loop of Celeste pretty well for the most part. It's really well designed, and they were able to keep the collectibles in the original game, with the stars being a replacement for the strawberries. Now, these are the more popular ROM hacks I could find on the internet, but even then, I was still able to find some of the more niche ROM hacks online. Like this one, where you're traveling through the world of Kirby 64 Popstar. This hack isn't really the most impressive one or the most polished one, but it's really interesting to see some of the people's most earliest works of ROM hacking. Like this one, where it's a small little overworld that's themed after Crash Bandicoot with the infamous bridge level and toll. You can also play as Crash Bandicoot in Mario 64, or you can try out this Dark Soul themed one called Mario Soul, where you have to go through this small medieval gauntlet in Dark Soul world. That sounded weird. Now with this one, I was surprised on how much I enjoyed it. This is Ultra Jump Mania, which is based on the world of Meta Runners. So for those who don't know, Meta Runners was an indie animated series from the people at Glitch Productions, which is a channel that you might be familiar with, as they worked on other shows over the years, like Sunset Paradise. I know a bunch of friends really liked Murder Drones, and most recently they had a big hit with The Amazing Digital Circus. Meta Runners was their first ever shot of making an animated show, which is a story of this cyberpunk-like world where gaming is pretty much the livelihood, with the story focusing on this cyborg named Tari, who has a special ability of transporting herself into different games. So turning this concept and converting it into a Mario 64 ROM hack is a pretty natural fit, as you travel through this tropical island collecting fruit medallions, which are the equivalent of stars, with various branching paths you can find, with every single nook and cranny meaning something. There's also these little robot dudes you can find, which are either these little roadblocks, like this one, which try to guard you against a gate and you need to pay $9 for it, or this one, where I was stumbling upon the jungle and actually found a convenience store right in the middle of nowhere, which for some reason made me think of that scene from the Looney Tunes movie where they find a Walmart in the desert. So yeah, try this ROM hack out, it's surprisingly pretty good. Okay, so Kid Dicarus. I can't say that with a straight face. So this hack is kind of like a reimagining of the original Kid Icarus from the NES, where you control as Pid using his trusty bow and arrow, trying to get up to the higher places of the area. So yeah, this has nothing to do with the reboot series from Uprising. It's more in line with the original NES, but in a 3D platformer, where instead of a third-person rail shooter, you're climbing up various high platform rings to get away from the underworld. This ROM hack reminds me a lot of TikTok Clock from the original game. But yeah, this ROM hack is another really good time. It's really fun, it's very challenging without it being too BS. And most importantly, I had a good time playing through this hack, so I recommend trying it out. So yeah, if you're tired of the platforming gameplay loop of Mario 64, you could also try Mario 64 that tackles different genres, such as visual novels, with Mario 64 in Danganronpa. Yeah, someone was able to convert the characters from Mario 64 into Danganronpa, which leads to pretty interesting funny results. And get ready until you see Monokuma Toad, or Monobu. This is honestly another really fun hack, but there's just one big problem with it. I can't really get into visual novels for the life of me. And I don't know, for some reason this gives me a bit of a headache with the first person's perspective. I don't know, I feel like it's kind of messing with my head for some reason. But if you're a fan of Danganronpa, I'd say try this out. And I also could say with the Ace Attorney ROM hack as well, which pretty much recreates the full episode of the first Ace Attorney games, but with Mario characters. And I like how to get around with the menus for Ace Attorney, they turn it into the warp heights, where Mario goes into this little plane area, where you need to go to a certain amount of warp heights to get the correct answer. Okay, I wasn't really expecting this, but there has been a few interesting ROM hacks I've found based on the Guilty Gear series. For those who don't know, Guilty Gear is a fighting game franchise that started on the PS1 back in the 90s. And it's still going strong to this very day, with the most recent game, Guilty Gear Strive, releasing on modern consoles. And as for the ROM hacks that were inspired by this series, I found one of these as you're traveling through the Lars Canyon from Strive. Not really much to talk about for this one right here, it's pretty much your standard ROM hack. But the more interesting ones is inserting Guilty Gear characters into Mario 64. With the first one that my friend Z-Dude found, where we can insert Bucket, Basket, Bridgett into Super Mario 64. She's still pretty much a simple reskin of Mario, but with new voices and such, but I've got to say, the model work for the character has been really well made. And for the last Guilty Gear character, we have arguably one of the more popular ones, May. She's pretty much the same one as the Bridgett ROM hack, where she's pretty much a simple reskin of Mario, but with one key different. I've never played Guilty Gear before, but for some reason, May can summon a giant dolphin that she can use to glide around areas. which is honestly really fun to do, even though I did get a bit carried away with it. Like, I was trying to reach a long grab, but may just go, ah! Of course, with how popular an indie game like Deltarune is, there was bound to be projects of fan games or any other work, and one of them was obviously going to be Mario 64. And with this one, we're traveling through the world of Cyber City in Deltarune Chapter 2. Now, I haven't gone too far in this hack, but from what I've seen, it is honestly another really impressive hack. I like how they were able to convert a lot of the assets of Mario 64 into Deltarune, like the enemies, and even made a fully turn-based RPG inside of the hack, where you can actually maneuver Mario around and avoid attacks, just like in Deltarune. And also, Fawful has fucking spammed him in this game. Unfortunately, this is where I have to stop with the ROM hack, because for some reason, every time I try to enter the boss fight, the game just crashes, and I have no idea why. The only other time ROM crashed on me multiple times was with that Castlevania thing that I did 2 months ago. Go figure, right? Okay, so with how niche of a series Klonoa is, I'm pretty surprised I was able to find some interesting hacks for this series. The first one is your usual character swap, where you can go through the entirety of Mario 64, but with Klonoa. And honestly, I just cannot hate this ROM hack right here. I mean, look how adorable he looks. And look how he sleeps like that. Aw, it's so cute. This hack also includes his second appearance in Lunatea's Veil with his blue suit and everything, meaning that you can choose either design for Klonoa. And the next hack I was able to find was his special level pack, where you're traveling through the world of Phantom Owl as Klonoa in his adorable little PJs, look. But yeah, it's just another simple level hack, but with the beautiful art style of Klonoa 1. Even if it's a little bit jank. But even still, I recommend trying out this hack, especially if you want to support our little cabin thing. Obviously, since Zelda is the second biggest Nintendo series that even crossed over with Mario a lot of times throughout the years, there's always going to be a ROM hack for Zelda in Mario 64. And luckily, the fans gave Zelda justice for these ones. The first ROM hack we've got here is The Legend of Mario, as we traverse through the world of Hyrule on NES. You're exploring this land, trying to find the Power Stars, and even have a fully fledged dungeon in this game as well. We got the classic tunes and such. It's everything you want for a Zelda ROM hack. Even the puzzles in this game were pretty fun, even if they're a bit on the simple side. So yeah, starting off with a really strong one, but for the second one, we have Mario and Ocarina of Time. Now for this ROM hack, we're going for the first section of the original game, where we have to go through the Great Deku Tree. And the way they were able to get around certain obstacle courses in Zelda and converted them into Mario 64 level design is really interesting. They even borrowed some other assets from other Mario games, like with the music note box, for example, and the blue and red switches. And one of the more original ideas is that instead of finding the invisible cap in a random area, you can go invisible on command as long as you have enough magic on you, which is very something that Zelda would do in its mainline games. And for the final hack, we have Mario in Clock Town. As the title suggests, it converts the main town area from Majora's Mask into a Mario 64 level, with 5 different missions you can do with 5 different missions, with 2 of them during the day and 3 of them during the night. Whether it's doing the bosses against King Babam or the Flom King, or doing a race with Koopa the Quick. These are main missions you would do in Mario 64. They even converted the little baby fairies from Majora's Mask into the red coins, which is really cool. Unfortunately, there's just 2 big problems with this hack that I have to bring up. For one, the performance in this hack is really bad. Like, no other ROM hack I've ever played had this much slowdown before. I think the problem is that with the original game, it was all loaded in by chunks, but in this ROM hack, the entirety of Clocktown is loaded at once. Plus, with that and the addition of a lot of enemies spawn around the area, you have a recipe for disaster. And lastly, I think the final boss with Bowser on top of the clock tower needs a lot more polish. For one, I do like the idea of having the spiky balls in the distance so you don't have to cheese it like you could do in the original game. But I feel like they kind of put it a bit too far in the distance, to the point where you need to have Bowser right close to the wall to get a chance at hitting the ball. One of Bowser's main attacks doesn't work well with the clock tower because it's a much more curvy area, unlike the final battlefield from 64. Which pretty much leads to me getting electrocuted, even though I'm clearly not getting hit by anything. And also this happened. Okay, so wrapping things up, we have 2 Sonic random hacks to talk about. The first one seems to be like another simple character swap, but with this hack, they do a lot more than just simply reskin Mario. Because not only you play as Sonic, but he also has his unique animations, and he controls a bit differently, as he controls a bit more faster and a bit more slippery than Mario. They even have the high bounce move he can do in the adventure games as well. They even swap a lot of the enemies in the game with more Sonic characters, like with Motobugs being the replacement of Goombas, and Knuckles appearing inside Peach's castle instead of the Thodds. But not just that, but not only you can play as Sonic, but also Shadow the Hedgehog as well. Now this is the type of ROM hacks I like to play. And for the final ROM hack we're talking about in this video, we have Sonic in Mario's Mind, which has Sonic traveling through the dreams of Mario, who is stuck in a coma, so Sonic needs to collect these dream stars to wake Mario up. This is just another level pack like the previous ROM hacks, but what makes it different is that, just like the previous one, Sonic has a different kind of control scheme to play as. Not only that, but he also has his homing attack in this hack as well, and even a full-on boss fight at the end. So yeah, pretty much another solid ROM hack. And that's why I can pretty much describe all the ROM hacks I talk about in these videos. They're pretty cool in the most part. And keep in mind, this is just talking about the crossover hacks alone, because Mario 64 ROM hacking has gone far away than we used to have during the early 2000s. And I think the hacking community is going to evolve even further going in the future. And just for the lulz and such, I found one more ROM hack to talk about in this video. And this is the Disaster of Brainrot 2, a Breaking Bad ROM hack.
His sleep schedule is at peace. Yo, Mr. White, there's a visitor at the door.
Who is it, Jesse?
Oh, it's Kirby!
Kirby, what's up? No! My meth!
Yo, he's getting away! He's so wet for some reason.
No! All my meth, it's gone!
Not quite.
Saul Goodman?
That's how you normally know me. But for this, you'll need all of me. Call me Saul Bad Guy.
Okay, I think that'll do for today, so thank you for watching and I'll see you later. Bye-bye.